There's a divider in Salt Lake City, a real visible one, in State Street. And that divider often says something about income equality, that such a visible line in a community, it really suggests something about the haves and the have-nots. The deeper structural issues that perpetuate income equality oftentimes are the same ones we're seeing across our nation. How many life chances does a person get? The more life chances we can offer someone, the more opportunities they have. But there's a flip side to that, is there are system failures. And a system failure on a systemic level is called racism, it's called classism, it's called sexism, it's called heterosexism, it's called ableism. It's not about hatred. It's about the ability for one community to continue to reap the benefits of an institution like healthcare or education or higher education. The have-nots get less resources, and the have-nots may not get as much say in policy matters. West of State Street, we see a higher concentration of poverty. East of State Street, we see a higher concentration of middle and upper class community. We see a higher concentration of people of color in our river districts because there's a correlation between people of color and income inequality. So it feels like segregation. We're not seeing enough affordable housing over the whole east side. The concentration of affordable housing is happening in our river district communities. The point is, between the have and the have-nots, is that you ought to have some choices, because sometimes you want your kids to go to specific schools, because you want to be closer to specific healthcare clinics, because you like to live in certain parts of Salt Lake City. But without affordable housing, with that visible divide, it makes it much more difficult. Our regulations, specifically predatory lenders, is out of hand. When folks can get a loan for 400% interest, there is no way people are going to get themselves out of poverty. And it's things like that that drive our community further and further apart. Our ability to continue to retool our systems to accommodate diverse communities is behind. It's antiquated. It's a relic. And we need to find methods that increase people's life chances and are examining system failures every single day, and people want to hold themselves accountable to it.
The connection between the University Neighborhood Partners and NeighborWorks Salt Lake is, together we identified a need in 2004 to create a formal leadership program. Westside Leadership Institute was established to respond to residents saying that they wanted to learn how to become better involved in the community, that they wanted to own the issues, but they didn't feel like they had the skill set or the confidence.
It was a great opportunity to find yet other ways to connect with our Westside River District communities of Salt Lake City. Students are identifying a pain or problem in the community, building a research question around that, and then finding the kind of resources that fit their skill sets and how they work as collaborators with other communities, and just start making change.
NeighborWorks had been doing leadership for 5 years prior to that partnership, and when we connected with University Neighborhood Partners, they introduced us to instructors who were interested in serving as teachers. Students from Westside Leadership Institute at the University of Utah, I think their ability to access the resources, so the library.
I have worked considerably with the Marriott Library staff. So when students are finally interacting with the university, they feel like they're having very positive experience. That when they're there, it's important that they feel like it's their university and it's their library.
But I think more importantly, it introduces the students' families, whether it's their children's or their spouses, to the university. And sometimes that's the first time they've ever been on campus. And that's a pretty intimidating campus. So to go up there as part of a cohort with Westside Leadership Institute, I think it sends them a message that I am a University of Utah student and I can be here and I have a right to be here and I need to come here.
You get to hear other people, and everybody has a voice. Throw a bunch of people in a room and say, what are the problems that you face and how are you going to fix them? You're in a room full of leaders. Everyone there is there because they are leaders. They're taking that step to challenge the social problems.
By introducing them to concepts of leadership, of engaging in community that they might not otherwise get.
What we need to do is just support and believe in them that they know what they're doing. And I just think that is a better way of solving the big tough issues in our community.
I think the program is focused specifically on leadership development and how you take those skills and put them to practical use.
So many people came to the class for different reasons, but we all had one thing in common, and that was that we really cared about our neighborhood and about our community and in wanting to invest in it and make it even better. I had already started working on a newspaper for my immediate neighborhood. I wanted to try to make the Westview more sustainable and learn better ways to manage an organization and just hone my leadership skills. We weren't doing it for profit. It was always mission-driven, trying to combat the negative stereotypes that had plagued our community for decades, to try to tell authentic stories, not just stories about sensational crime or gang violence. And we wanted to define ourselves. So the community newspaper, where community members decide what's newsworthy. They decide what stories and what content goes in the papers. And then once the paper's done, I feel a real huge sense of pride because there are so many rich stories and amazing people and things that happen. You know, I'm not saying that our community is perfect by any means. There are challenges, but people are doing things about it. They're not just sitting back and being victims. People are trying to come up with solutions to solve problems in their neighborhoods, and we're telling those stories as well. It's very hopeful and very powerful.
Connecting people in a room and letting you know that you're part of this community now is probably the strongest thing you can do to strengthen a community.
It just feels so positive and really hopeful. It generates enthusiasm, and you can see and feel that enthusiasm from a lot of different people.
It brings more sense of self and being more like worldly. These things are happening around me and I gotta stop those and now I gotta fix that.
Yo me acuerdo, ese día yo no llegué porque mi carro se calentó, pero yo estaba en el taller y me estaba entrando como una llamada por minuto, la gente me llama. Una de las cosas que yo pienso que es fundamental para los estudiantes, sobre todo en nuestra comunidad latina, es entender cómo es que no están dirigiendo, no están haciendo un liderazgo donde están imponiendo, sino un liderazgo de inclusión, donde están pensando en el bienestar de todos y están trabajando por una causa común.
When the light goes on and there's that aha moment where they're like, wow, I am a leader and I can make a difference, that tells me that we're doing the right thing in terms of focusing on leadership. And when they start to share those stories, it's a lot like social media. It goes viral. And it's a good thing that happens. And it shows people that if you get involved and you get engaged in social justice issues, that it really makes a difference.
And see it as a broader solution. The solution being that solutions come from everyday people, that everyday folks know what the problems are and they're creative about addressing them. And that the more we do that kind of work, the more we can set our sights towards what needs to be done on a macro level, on a systemic level. For me in Salt Lake City, we're not investing enough in smart growth, about how we're going to have a more diversified housing plan, how we diversify our racial and ethnic communities, that when we think about the have and the have-nots, we might consider property values more important than sheltering the homeless community. We need to continue to have honest conversations about those important areas in order to ensure that we're better distributing power and resources, or just life chances in general. And that's where I think the Westside Leadership Institute is just a piece of the solution, and that their solutions are just as valuable and viable as someone in City Hall. And sometimes they don't always work, but last time I checked, I never saw a government that every idea worked either. But what does work is that people walk away and feel like our community put their money where their mouth was, and their resources where their mouth was, and they invest in us, and the return is exponential. Martin Luther King said, and I love this about him, if you want to know the morality of a community, look into their budgets, because a budget is a moral document of that community.
If you truly want equity, and if you truly want communities that represent the community, you have to have diverse communities, right? You shouldn't be segregated.
You need to really look at State Street and start erasing those lines and think about how that this whole city belongs to all of us, and we ought to all have some kind of access to it from multiple points. If it's about healthcare, if it's about housing, if it's about education, that when we start seeing more opportunities for those connections and inclusivity, we will start to erase some of the income class disparity.
There are individuals in the community who may not feel that they are a leader or that they have leadership capabilities, but I think everybody does, and I think they should really think twice and realize that there are different types of leaders. You know, you never know, so give it a try.
If you're tired of waiting around for others to make the change, don't. Time to change is now, and go make a revolution, because the change starts in here and in here.